Hello, welcome to Dead Air Dudes. I'm Izzy.
I'm Raka. Thanks, Deader Dudes Nation. And we have a special guest here today. We are joined by Brandon Ingram of Dismay Avenue Comics. Brandon, introduce yourself. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So I'm Brandon Ingram. I'm kind of over Dismay Comics, and one of the series that we're producing right now is a horror anthology called Dismay Avenue. And I'm enjoying reading it, I should say. I like the stories. I'm a little bit biased in the writing department there, but I love the art a ton with those stories.
No,
So are
that
you the sole writer or
Yeah, I wrote basically writer, editor, everything with this book other than the actual art itself.
so how did the idea come to you? Like what exactly is Dismay Avenue and how did it all start?
So Disney Avenue, um, I'll even say with Disney Comics, like the brand itself, like it started with Disney Avenue because with Disney Avenue, I wanted to make a horror anthology series because I love horror. I love horror anthology series. I love stuff like the Twilight Zone, all that stuff.
Definitely.
And I basically wanted to make my own horror anthology. And so I was trying to think of a good name, like synonyms. I wanted it to kind of be like the horror and some sort of street equivalent, basically. And so I was trying to think of good names. That took a few hours, and eventually I came up with Dismay Avenue. And so that took a few hours or half a day. And then Disney Comics, the brand itself, came up in like 5 or 10 minutes. It was almost like a DC Comics thing where like Detective Comics, DC Comics, it was basically like Disney Avenue came first, so I'll just say Disney Comics. And that's kind of how that started and how it started rolling there, basically.
Nice.
so have you always been a writer? Have you always had these inspirations and jot down stories? Where did that origin come from?
Yeah, so looking back on it, I enjoyed writing in like middle school, high school, but just didn't realize it at the time. But looking back, I see that I did enjoy it. But writing as like a hobby and like really enjoying writing didn't happen until like right after high school, kind of as like an outlet as well as just like a thing I like to do. That's kind of how that began, and my love of horror just kind of led me to writing short anthologies. That's some of the first stuff I wrote was short anthologies, and then eventually I would write other stuff like The Gallows Man is a series that I've been doing on Kickstarter and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of branched, and there's all kinds of genres that I have been writing and continue to write. But horror, I think, is a kind of a not easy thing for me to do, but of all the genres, it's the one that comes to me the most naturally. Like I love writing any and all genres, but horror is the one where it's like, yeah, I can put out this script a lot quicker than this genre kind of.
Now, how come like what made you go like towards comics in general, comics in general, as opposed to maybe writing a novel or a screenplay or whatever else?
Well, whenever I graduated high school, a big thing I was doing was studying and writing screenplays, like studying the formatting and how to write a proper screenplay, and basically trying to write my own screenplays and stuff. In some of my comics, like Get Gallows Man, for example, it was a feature length screenplay. And then I converted it to a comic because it's one of those things where there's limitations when it comes to if I make it a movie. Like one, I'll likely never get like with something like Gallows Man, it doesn't need a high budget, but like $500,000 is a lot of money.
Definitely.
Um, I likely won't ever get that to make that movie, but even if I had that $500,000, it probably still wouldn't look as good as I want it to. Whereas comic book media, one, it costs cheaper, like paying per page rate, as well as it can be so much more imaginative. Like you can truly capture what you want to see on the page. Like an example is the Avengers Endgame scene where it's the giant fight at the end, the big old CGI fight at the end. Awesome scene, probably costs like tens, like $50 million or whatever for that one scene, basically. Like probably more than that. Like you're probably touching $100 million for that one scene. And it's one of those things where it's like, I'm never going to be able to come anywhere near that type of money or that popular of a thing, but I can have my equivalent of this awesome thing in a comic book and it look amazing. And also not bashing Avengers Endgame, but as CGI progresses and progresses, we may look back on it 20 years and we'll pick apart that scene a little bit like, oh, that doesn't look as good. That doesn't look as good. Whereas with comic art, it's kind of always good. It's got its own style. And so I think that's really why I lean into making comics a lot more, is just the more freedom you get with it.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
We live parallel lives. We've done the same things in our past
Yep.
and try to venture into those. Have you tried taking some of your scripts or earlier writing anywhere, like contests, publishing houses, agents, etc.?
When it came to the screenplays, before I like started writing comics, when it came to writing the screenplays, I would enter them in contests and stuff. Not entirely expecting to win, but a lot of times it was good feedback, some constructive criticism here and there. There were a couple like contests where it's like, we think this is bad. It's like, I'm fine if you tell me it's bad. Just tell me like what you don't like about it or whatever. Like don't just say it's bad. Like give me reason so I can work on that as a creator. Exactly.
Right.
But it just kept, it didn't really lead to anywhere. Like I won small little contests here and there, but it wasn't like anything crazy to where I was just like, I want to see these properties be made. And I want to see it as time progressed. I was like, I want to see it more in a comic book than I would want to see it in a TV show or a movie, because I think it'll kind of feel better, look better in a comic book. And so that's kind of what led me in that route. Now, that's not to say like, oh, like someone wants to make a Gallows Man movie or Gallows Man show. Would you do it? Of course I would. Like, I think anyone would be an idiot, especially as like a small indie creator. You'd be dumb to be like, no, given the opportunity, I don't want to make this. Like, no. You would.
It's a dream come true.
It essentially is it's in that instance kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. So you likely would take it, depending on the creation, because there's some comics I have where it's like there's no way you can adapt it into anything other than a comic. Like those haven't been published yet. Like they're specific. It's like there's no way you can adapt it into any other media.
One would hope if you get to that point, you keep creative rights, and so you have some input direction where things go.
No,
exactly. Well, that's also a thing, is like even me being like an indie small fry, like if something like Dismay Avenue or Gallows Man or another property got picked up by something, I still want to, like you said, kind of help along the show, help along the movie, whatever it may be, because it is kind of my baby. I don't have like literal babies or kids.
Oh, right there. Yeah.
I mean, look, Kirkman got screwed that whole way with The Walking Dead.
Yes.
You know, a complete example of that. How that
gave his vision. Yeah, I get that. Now, is this like is everything in like a one self-contained universe, or just different? Each story is independent on its own, or it's like one big everything is all connected.
With Dismay Avenue, or just like any comic? With Dismay Avenue, for the most part, with Dismay Avenue, the most part, it's kind of its own thing. Not entirely, it's all in one universe, which I guess you possibly could make it out as that, because I don't have any stories that like end the universe where it's like, well, that's not possible because the universe ended in the story or whatever. So I guess you could technically do that when writing it. I didn't really have that in mind. When it comes to issue two, all of them are, it's like an Easter egg that you have to look for in the page art and stuff. All of them are connected, but it's an Easter egg that you have to look for, like a specific person. I'm not talking about like, oh, they all have a connecting theme or whatever. No, no, it's like a person or image is kind of in each one, and you can kind of make your own theory as to how it's connected. I have my own, but I'll let people do their own thing there. But
That's good to know. You guys hear that? So yeah, so look closely. Well, that's good.
Good for people to fish around and take a second look back at it.
yeah,
The
yeah.
program I really liked. The program was very interesting. Now, was that a modified account of something that happened to you? Was that something? Yeah, right. I think I read that somewhere. Go with
Yeah,
that.
because basically the first third of that story like was an actual date night I had with someone. Like we were getting out of college classes. This is when I was in college, and she wanted to see some movie, and it wasn't playing at any of the other theaters. It was playing at this one on the outskirts of town. I was like, all right, let's go see it. And we get there, and similar to the story, big Cineplex, no one in the parking lot, no cars in the parking lot, maybe one, and that's probably the concessions workers, but that's it. And we're like, oh, this is kind of creepy. And much like the story, we're walking up talking about like this is kind of weird and stuff, and see the big old ribbons like in the story of tickets sold inside. We go in, it's two teenagers working concessions and one guy off in the lobby with a hoodie pulled over,
Of
just like
course.
in the story. Yeah, and we're just kind of like bantering about like this is creepy, like hopefully we don't die or whatever. And we talk about that with the concessions people as well, similar to in the story. And we go into our auditorium, we're talking, chatting, all that stuff, and a few minutes go by, and either myself or my date uh, just kind of stop, and we're like, oh my gosh, like this piano loop has been going for like 4 or 5 minutes. Like I think it's stuck or whatever. And we look, it's like a big old Chevy ad. Like obviously I can't do Chevy in the
No,
story. That's
Right.
yeah. But it's like a big old Chevy ad. And we were just joking, like, oh, like it's Chevy trying to hypnotize us into going out and buying a Silverado or a Corvette or something. And we were like, okay. I said, wait here. I'll go tell them to reboot the projector or whatever. And as I was going out, similar to Ben and me in the story, we were joking like, "Oh, hope nothing happens. Hope you don't die as you go out." That sort of
yeah.
stuff. Exactly. And then whenever I went out, I told them, "Hey, the projector needs rebooting." They're like, "All right." I go back into the auditorium. It's pitch black. I assume just because they're rebooting the projector. And I pull out my phone flashlight looking around, and it was just me and her in the auditorium. I should mention that because the theater's empty. Obviously, the auditorium's gonna be empty. I'm looking around. She's not in there. My date's not in there. I'm like, okay, funny, like thinking she's like pulling a joke or whatever because we were talking about this earlier.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, so funny. And I was peeking around and all that. I was like, huh. And I was like, kind of freaking my own self as this was going along. And this is where all the creepy tension dies. This is where the story diverts. I get out of the auditorium and I look up, and it's like auditorium one, and our auditorium was auditorium three. So I just walked into the wrong auditorium. I freaked myself out. So I go to auditorium three. She's there. We watch whatever movie it was. Everything goes fine. Program is basically a what if, like what if something creepy actually was going on. And that's basically how that went.
No,
Nah,
life can be stranger than fiction, and you actually draw some good inspiration from that. I remember reading Stephen King about writing, how you just take everyday occurrences or things in the news, you expound on it, yet let your creative juices go, and you have a best-selling novel. And with horror, you've captured it. I really was impressed by it, and the artistry by Jade Sky, that was awesome. I mean, you definitely got the creepy vibe. You got full pages there. you got dark colors, you got shadowing. Um, some of the images are like three images or three an event sequence, but all blended without the boxes cutting it off. I thought that was
And
brilliant.
that's, yeah,
Was that
that's
your
done on
creative juices
purpose.
in there? That was her? That was you?
It was a little bit of both with stuff like that, and how, like, at the beginning, I was like, as it progresses, let's break away from the typical boxes, because it starts out like boom, 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 like
Yeah.
three boxes with
Right,
the rat in the parking
right.
lot and stuff like that. And as it progresses, it just starts getting a little bit crazier because it is like a psychological horror. So that helps with that as well. But she was very, when it came to how all that should look, like she did that, because I was basically just like, have it start getting a little bit weirder as it
Great.
progresses, and she knocked it out of the park in that department.
And that's a good relationship, writers and artists. It's very hard to find that nice chemistry where you are on the same plane. And
Oh yeah.
you have that. I see that you work with her again because it you can't lose that, and it's hard to get that connection with anybody else. And how did you find her? So you found her through.
With all the artists that I worked on both of these books, except Nikki Power, she's the letterer on a couple things, including program. With all of them except Nikki, I found them all through DeviantArt, like the website DeviantArt. That's how I
Right.
found them. Just scouring for dozens, if not 100 hours, like looking, because
Wow.
when I wrote the stories, I had a specific art style in mind for each story. So then I was just looking for artists that had that art style, and after like 100 hours, I had my artist basically.
I commend you because it's well thought out. Because me and Izzy both are writers too for a long, long time. But as we want to design something, especially in the comic book, you're thinking about layout, you're thinking about colors, you're thinking about impressions, you're thinking about how to translate that onto your comic book. And when you do find somebody that is pretty remarkable, good stuff to have your inspiration get translated onto print. It's a great feeling.
Oh yeah.
Coming
Oh
I,
yeah.
from like a screenplay background where it's just kind of okay, you want this, and you have to shift it to comic book writing. It kind of, I mean, well, I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know the exact ins and outs, but that's why it's a little, I
it's
guess.
hard because they tell you writing is to tell and visual medium is to show. And I think comic books, you have to have a pretty good marriage of the two.
Oh yeah.
You want
Oh
to
yeah.
allude to stuff and then you want to tell stuff. And sometimes you have to get all wordy, but like, no, I need to show this stuff. And sometimes you need to get wordy.
And
Otherwise, you have anthologies this big. That's issue one. And you go on and
yeah.
on.
And that's what I try to do with, like, with any of my comics, whether it's Dismay Avenue or Gallows Man. Gallows Man is definitely, I'm not saying culprit in a bad way, but it does this to where, like, yeah, I don't want to have a ton of text or whatever. Like, sometimes just let the scene show what's happening, because it is a visual media. I'm not writing a novel. Like,
Right, right,
it's
right.
like
Tell us more
people.
about Gallows Man. Go. What's that all
Yeah,
about?
yeah. So Gallows Man is basically it's the first book that I published, that I put out on Kickstarter, but Dismay Avenue was the first one I worked on. The Gallows Man was the first one that came out. It's pretty much my love of, and picking on a little bit. It's not harmful though. My love of Golden Age and Silver Age superheroes,
Okay.
and basically making a parody slash satire of that, with Gallows Man being the main hero and his sidekick is Noose Boy, very much like a Batman and Robin type relationship there. And the city that they live in called Town City, and there is a Nazi threat. This is set in the 1940s. A Nazi threat that is infiltrating the city, basically underground in the city, it's like a Nazi cult kind of. And they have to basically find and take out this Nazi threat to save Town City. And it's a good book. It's fun. Like, it has some good humor. Like, a lot of people dig the humor, dig the, everyone says this, the gallows humor. there's a lot of stuff with that because it's a superhero who one of the big ways he kills the bad guys is hanging them. Um, and so it's a little bit dark, and it's like, oh, like I don't know if this is like a good superhero, but if you think about the golden age superheroes, like a lot of them had
Oh
guns
yeah.
and stuff and were just killing people, and children would basically be like, oh my gosh, I love this superhero, or I look up to the superhero, and I kind of ramp that up in the world of the Gallows Man, where like little kids hear about the Gallows Man. Like there's a radio announcer in the comic who's like, oh, the Gallows Man saved the day yet again from
The
the
dad.
dastardly villains. Yeah, exactly. It's like save the day from the dastardly villains. And
I
like
guess
little
that
kids
leads
just
into comic books. So obviously, the golden age, and you draw inspiration. Who are some of the favorite ones? What do you collect? What's your favorites? What inspired you? What you want to go back to? Which comics?
uh I'll start with like favorite superhero, which is Superman for me. I love Superman. When I was a teenager, I think this was the same with every teenager. When I was a teenager, my favorite superhero was Batman. I still do like Batman. There's a lot of great Batman tales, but as I got older, I don't know. I like Superman more. I like what he stands for. I like that there's hope with him. There's hope in Batman some, but not as much as Superman. But yeah, I love Superman comics. And like right now, when it comes to the stuff I'm currently reading, I'm binging like a ton of Superman books, like some that I've already read and then some new ones, because I kind of had a fracture happen with my Superman reading mind like a few months ago, where when I was in high school, All Star Superman was my favorite Superman book. You see it on a bunch of lists, one of the best Superman books, which it is. But as I got older, I didn't know if I felt the same. And then I read Superman Up in the Sky by Tom King. It came out like 2 or 3 years ago. It was a Walmart book, then they put it out in floppies. And so far, that is the best Superman book I have read. I
Really?
read that. Well, I read that and I was like, man, I'd love to go back to some of the other Superman books I read, not thinking like it was the best at the time.
Yeah.
I went back and read All Star Superman, and I was like, All Star Superman is good. It might even still be in my top five, but I don't think it's better than Superman Up in the Sky. And so from there was a rift because All Star Superman was the number one for me. And now it's like, crap. Well, now I have to figure out what the number one Superman book is for me. So I'm just binging a bunch of Superman books I've read in the past and new ones to figure out what that is. So far, Up in the Sky hasn't been toppled, but I'm okay if it does get toppled.
That's awesome. Now, where can everyone find Gallows Man?
So with Gallows Man, when it comes to my Kickstarters, I like them to kind of feel like a special event, like an exclusive event. Like you have a month to back this project. So I don't have like an online store where I sell these books after the Kickstarters. It's probably a bad business front on mine. But I don't know. I just like the Kickstarters to feel special. I like them. I like people to feel like they got in on the ground floor because they
Mhm.
did. And so with something like Gallows Man, the only way to get it is through these Kickstarters. Like there's going to be a Gallows Man #3 Kickstarter, likely in like March or May of 2023. But if you are still interested in that and these horror books, on this Kickstarter, Dismay Avenue #1 and 2, you can get your horror books, and then in the add-on sections, there's all the issues of Gallows Man so far, including variant covers. So you can add that to your order, so you can get both your horror creepy books, you can also get your fun Golden Age, Silver Age funny books, basically.
Get your fix of your golden age, and you get your horror fix at the same time. That being,
Exactly.
how is the Kickstarter going for both Gallows Man?
You just launched it, right? A few days
For
ago.
Disney Avenue, yeah, I launched it October 18th, so almost a week now. I think like 5, 6 days so far.
Yeah.
I just looked at it before I got on here. It's $1,180. So
Woo!
it's of the three successful Kickstarters I've run so far, it is the one that is doing the best. And it, I knew it would likely do better than the Gallows Man Kickstarters, but the way it's going, I didn't predict it was going to go this well. So I'm very excited to see that.
You know, it's
Good stuff. Congratulations.
came on at the right time with Dismay Avenue because there's been a resurgence of horror comics in the past couple of years, especially.
Oh
It,
yeah.
anthologies is going left and right. You have a Return of Creep Show. You have I think a Tales from the Crypt is coming back. You have there's
Mhm.
plenty from Scout Comics, from Dark Horse, from everything else, and it's awesome. It's good to see, especially
Oh
spooky.
yeah.
Perfect.
Because kind of the thing that in my eye looking at it kind of started it back was something like Witches. Like Scott Snyder's Witches in 2016 kind of started it back. Then you had a bunch of stuff start coming out. Like you got uh, the House of Slaughter book. I'm trying to remember what the
Oh yeah,
actual book is
something are
called.
killing the children. Yeah.
Something's killing the children. You have stuff like that. You have all the Hill House books when those came out, like those did big. And then yeah, you have all these other anthologies. You got Ice Cream Man by Image Comics coming out. You got all this stuff that, yeah, like you said, is bringing like a resurgence of horror back into comics, which is awesome because we haven't really had this much horror since before the Comics Code, or even like right when the Comics Code hit, basically.
Exactly. I mean, from the EC books, from Tales from the Crypt, from shock, suspense, and all those great things from the past. It's awesome. It's awesome. I mean, awesome. So now how exactly, I mean, is it self-published? I mean, how did you go about that process to get the books or to put the books out for that matter?
Yeah, so ultimately it came to first writing them and then finding artists through like DeviantArt and stuff like that. And then from there, um, basically, as I was doing all this, and even before, I did a crap ton of research on like how to make comics. And I found like a couple specific things that could help people easily get through it easier. Like there's a YouTube channel called Comic Pop that has like a 3 or 4 video series on like how to make comics. It's a little bit broad, but they do explain a lot in that, and then you can branch off from there and do some research. But stuff like that was pretty integral in me learning how to do this, and then the research as I was going, and then finding good printers and stuff like that. For also, I should mention if anyone out there is wanting to make a comic and you don't want each issue to cost a crap ton of money, I recommend Comics Wellspring. I'm not like sponsored or anything, but it's like the highest quality for the cheapest amount. Basically, it's Comics Comix and then Wellspring. They're a good resource. And then one that's a lot of people don't know. I found out about it through someone else's Kickstarter, like going through their page,
Right.
is Image Now by Mahar, and Mahar is Mahar, and they're cheaper than Comics Wellspring, and they have good quality. I get them to print the Gallows Man books. I'm getting Comics Wellspring to print the Dismay Avenue books because with Dismay Avenue, the colors need to pop, and it's able to do that better with Comics Wellspring.
Yeah.
With Gallows Man, it's that retro feel, so I'm fine with it. I want it to look a little bit old slash modern, so it works perfectly there.
That's
I'm
all.
with you there because for my independent line, Nothing Man, we went to Comics Wellsprings, and they were the best bang for your buck. We really couldn't
Oh
beat
yeah,
them. I think we bought bulk, and it was like 250 or 220 an issue. I should have spent a little more in splurge and got color, but I went for the black and white. But I
Mm,
hear you. And the other thing is, I don't know if you're consider down the line, but Comixology online, the digital medium, and then Amazon, of course, Kindle, and you can publish. I mean, they're all under the same umbrella parent company. But later, when you get more exposure and bigger, you can now refer to them. Now they take their obvious nominal, fee,
yeah, yeah,
but you're looking for distribution. You're looking for popular to become more popular, more mainstream, so that you got volume and you get notice and
yeah.
recognition, and everything else will trickle down once it gets to that point. But again,
Because
for me,
likely what
for him, yeah, independent artists, we're all for you. We want you to succeed, baby,
thank you.
because you're doing it. You're living the dream, and there's all these resources today which was not available years past, where an independent
Oh yeah.
um, artist as yourself can make it happen.
yeah, in the past, like when it came to, and this is 10 years ago, it's not even that long ago. Like 10 years ago, basically all you had was Kablam, and Kablam is so-so.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
had like a couple other ones, but it's like your local printers. You had to go to your local printers or you use Kablam. That was
You pay
basically
a
it.
ton. You don't really make as much. You have to price your end product very high. And
Probably.
for a person
Hmm.
starting out with no name, you can't ask for $9.99 an issue. No one's buying
Yeah,
it.
no, not at all.
Any other obstacles? Anything you've come across? How has the entire journey been thus far? I'm sure nothing goes easy. Everything, Murphy's Law, things come up. Any of the major obstacles come your way? Something you want to share? Something you got over? Something that you can share with others?
I'd say when it comes to obstacles, the only thing that I've really hit, like when it comes to the artists I've worked with and continue to work with, like there's been basically no obstacles. The only obstacles that happen are uh, in the past. Like I've spent money on books. I remember spending money like 250 bucks for like a short little mini series that possibly won't see the light of day because I don't know if it was exactly what I wanted or the quality that I wanted. So I'm out 250 bucks, but it was a learning experience because
Yeah.
that was like when I first started out. It helped me learn how to, it sounds bad, not vet artists, but like, hey, like I'll commission you to do a couple pages before we start off, basically.
Yeah, of
I didn't
course.
know that then. Yeah. So there's learning experiences here and there. Um, and sometimes there's little problems here and there like that. Like there's going to be some stuff like I remember wanting to buy certain Kickstarter materials like a year or two ago as like stretch goals or different stuff like that before the Kickstarter came out, and I'd buy it and get like a little sample, and it cost me close to $100 to get all the stuff that I wanted. It's like, yeah, this isn't the level of quality that I want. I don't want people to get this and be like, wow, this guy gave us dog crap. Basically, it's like
Like,
you
oh,
you learn
yeah,
you
okay.
learn through that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
what do they say? Life experiences, you got to pay for it one way or the other.
There you go.
Exactly.
Have you ever considered maybe going, or unless you have already, gone to a convention, a comic book convention, get a table, be in person, kind of, meet the people, meet the crowd. You can get exposure, you can make contacts, and then my, my experience too is sometimes you give out free merch, and you give up free issues. You gain a friend, you gain a follower, or something in exchange. Give me your email, get on my mailing list, and stuff like that. That's another way. Have you considered these, or have you done them?
Well, 2023 will be like the year of me doing convention centers. Like I haven't done them yet. Like I've gone as like the fan, like wanting to buy everything basically. But 2023, at least the first half, there's like four or five that I already have signed up for, and a couple of those applications have already been accepted. Some of them will take a while because usually it's like
Oh,
3, 4 months out they finally accept it. But yeah, like the first one I'll be doing is Fan Expo New Orleans from January 6th to 8th. Maybe not, from what I've heard, probably not the best idea or best start as like my first convention, because it is very big. And from what I've heard, starting out, it's good to kind of start out in those smaller ones. But I'll get some experience there, and then 2 weeks later, go to one of those small conventions that's just a Saturday only in the middle
right.
of Georgia. Like so I'm gonna get my mix of conventions.
You
Well,
heard
that's fantastic, man.
2023 Disney Comics will go on tour. So
Heck yeah.
Yeah,
Heck yeah.
definitely. Before that happens, let everybody know. Publish it everywhere you can. Do whatever promotion you can. Tell people, you heard it live from my Instagram channel. I'll give you a free book or something.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but it's a great experience. It's a little unnerving sometimes. You've never done before. You have to pretty much approach strangers. Here, read my comic. Here, have my thing. But I think once you break that first day or that first few hours, and you make a really good. I'll tell you this: you'll never forget that first experience when somebody generally sits there or stands there and leaves through your stuff, and I really like it. You get like genuine feedback. They purchase it. if nothing else happens that day, which I hope not, you leave with such a euphoric feeling of accomplishment and recognition.
Oh yeah.
Not that you need it, but I mean, it's a good feeling to have, and
Yeah.
it will give you energy and boost.
Action, you know what I mean?
Oh, good.
Exactly. And luckily, I'll have my buddy. We do a podcast together. I'll have him with me, so whenever I need to do potty breaks or whatever, if there's a celebrity I want to go see or whatever, he can man the booth. But I'll be there most of the time. But like him being there will help a lot because like we do the podcast all the time. We're talking all the time, so uh, it'll be good support there. Like yeah, if family was there doing it with me, that'd be fine. But I I feel more comfortable it being like a buddy of mine than like my sister or my mom or whatever.
Yeah, you have to be on the same plane. You have to be there. You have to
Yeah,
know, why we're here, what we're doing. You can
exactly.
leave the booth without missing a beat.
All right, so let everybody know, hey, if you want, everybody know your podcast, let everybody know the Kickstarter, where they can find you and what they can do.
Yeah, when it comes to my social media stuff, it's Dismay Comics. That's Dismay Comics on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can check out all that stuff. When it comes to the Kickstarter, you can go to my Instagram or whatever, or you can just go to Kickstarter.com, type in Dismay Avenue. It'll be the first thing that pops up. Dismay Avenue number 1 and 2 is the Kickstarter I'm running. It's my horror anthology series with issues 1 and 2. It leans more specifically in psychological, a little bit of cosmic, a little bit of supernatural horror. But as the series progresses, like it's going to go everywhere because horror is such a broad genre. It can go in many different directions, but that's kind of issues 1 and 2. And issue 1, it's 40 pages of story. It's mostly just one 40-page story, then a one-page backup and some extra bonus information in there. But you can get that for just $5 digitally. So over 40 pages, or you can get issues 1 and 2, which is over 100 pages of comics because issue 2 has stories and it's over 60 pages long. So issues 1 and 2 over 100 pages of comics for just $9 digitally. And then physical copies start at $11, and there's multiple tiers that go up from there. There's also an exclusive Dismay Avenue T-shirt where if you go to the Kickstarter, there's a thumbnail where it's a little boy basically like his arm sticking out of like this vortex and he's like crying. It's in black and white. It's like manga type art and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So you can have that on your chest as a t-shirt. And so as you're walking by people, like it's like no. He stays on the t-shirt. He's reaching out, but he stays. People have to see this. There's that. There's also like complete bundles where you can get both issues and the variant covers. And then there's like creator value bundles where you get pretty much everything that you can imagine with the Kickstarter, as well as the scripts. You can get the scripts digitally with that, as well as a script consultation, a Zoom script consultation
Oh,
with me, 2 hour Zoom script consultation with me, where whatever script you have, or if it's a bunch of tiny scripts, I can go through, give you some notes, some feedback, and not say it's good or it's bad.
right.
I will give you actual feedback and try to help you develop the story within that time. But also, before that consultation, I'll ask you, hey, go ahead and send your script. I'll read it and make my notes beforehand. That way, when we're on the screen call, I'm not just quiet. Like I'm giving you feedback that 2 hours. Not all of it is happening during that 2 hours. So a lot of bang for your buck there as a creator. Um, I think I'm a decent artist. Maybe whenever you read my scripts or you have the consultation, will be like, nah, he's not that great. But you can be the deciding factor on that. But there's a lot of bang for your buck. There's tiers ranging from $1 to $60. There's a tier for any budget, basically. Any budget you have, there's something for you.
Yeah.
Oh, and like I mentioned before, I forgot to mention, if you're interested in the Gallows Man comics, those are add-ons. You can add those to your Dismay Avenue order, so you can get both those books. Whenever super creeped out, you can read a nice funny book. Or if you're reading a nice funny book, you're like, I want to get creeped out, you can read Dismay Avenue. So there
Palette
you go.
changer, a palette cleanser. Very
Yeah.
nice. Well, Brandon Ingram, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for letting us know all different avenues where you can be found, all your outlets, all your merch, from independent artist to another independent artist, podcaster to podcaster, and everything else. You're doing it, man. Good stuff. Hope to
Thanks,
see
man.
you. Maybe one day we'll be at a con where you're at, and we can pass by your table or say what's up in person. Again, commendations to everything that you're doing, the artwork, the storylines, and your future endeavors. It's been an absolute pleasure. And of course, now, because we both love horror and comic books, I mean, this is Halloween and awesome, awesome time of year.
Oh yeah, it's perfect time.
So as always, I'm Izzy.
I'm Raka. Thank you, Dead Dudes Nation. Thanks for listening. And thank you, Brandon. Dismay Avenue Comics.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.